over the last 48 hours, as we have asked many of our viewers to write in and share their experiences, we have found so many new case studies. And General Sadbir Singh is back with us today, as chairman of the ex-servicemen movement. Maruf, thanks for coming back. And General Shankar Prasad, thanks for coming in. And General VP Malik, former Chief of Army Staff, thanks for coming in this Friday evening, sir. I first would like to go across to Padma Sangli and Shakuntala Bhandarkar, who are wives of late Major Sangli and late Colonel Bhandarkar. Thank you very much for joining me. And I saw some of the frustration which you expressed there in the course of that news report. Now, I first would like to try and, so that our viewers who are watching today, Mrs. Sangli and Mrs. Bhandarkar, I'd like to both of you to first just share the difficulties that you've been through, because people need to know what a martyr's wife and what a martyr's family goes through in our country after being made the promises by their own government. So, if I can begin with any of you, if you can share your experiences with us so that we get a sense of how pathetic the situation has become, please. I'd like to go across to you in Bangalore, please.
Yes, thank you, Arnav, for starting this campaign. We as women who are single parent, having lost our husband, we were, in fact, we are very busy with our own work and responsibilities. We never had the time to raise our voice, and your Times now has given us the platform to raise our voice and our issues and bring it to the notice of the government, which we have been trying silently, through very formal and decent ways of, communicating to them, but they have just given us their blind eye and ignored us to the core. And we are immensely grateful to your channel. Your team, Pooja and Neha, have been frantically trying to coordinate with us with the shoot and all that. And on behalf of all the families here, especially in Karnataka, we are thankful to you. And I want to tell you that in Karnataka, the state of martyrs' families are really very pathetic. I would like to first, from my side, I would like to tell you that the honorarium the gallantry awardees are getting is mere pittance. We have raised these issues in various medias, local medias, but no one has heard our plea. To brief you about it, it is like having my husband having received Shaurya Chakra, I am getting rupees 250 per annum as the honorarium. Just imagine, rupees 250 per annum is the honorarium my husband gets for receiving Shaurya Chakra, and this is what the the great Karnataka government is giving us. So what is 250 rupees per annum for today? You can just imagine, what is the value for that money.
I just for our viewers, Mrs. Bhandarkar, I want to say that Colonel Ajit Bhandarkar was with the 25 Rashtriya Rifles, and he was awarded the Veer Chakra posthumously for his role in the Kargil war. So we understand. He sacrificed his life, and after killing 3 terrorists in an encounter in Poonch during the Kargil war in 1999. And he, in the gun battle in which your husband succumbed to enemy bullets, he killed 5 terrorists. And if I am not mistaken, he was 39 years old, right? So,
and my kids were 5 years old and 7 years old.
So
my kids were just 5 years and 7 years old.
A 39-year-old martyr survived by his wife and his 2 young children. And what does the country give? The country gives his wife in turn 250 rupees annually. And I'd like to underscore this, ladies and gentlemen, even for that, Shakuntala Bhandarkar is made to fight and wait. But let me tell you about the greatness of this lady. She has allowed her son to join the army. I just cannot express, Mrs. Bhandarkar, our gratitude as citizens for people like you. And I now want to just ask.
And
yes, please go ahead. No, please go ahead.
yes, I just want to tell all of them, all the viewers, that whenever a person chooses this profession, it is not because when he loses his life he will be compensated or something like that. It is something which only the privileged or only the lucky ones, I feel, will get it. You know, he died with his boots on, so it's a great honor for, not only for him, honorable death for him, but also as a family we take a great pride in that. So I would like to announce in front of all the Indians who are watching today Times Now, that till today I was accepting that 250 rupees as an honor and as a pride, as a matter of pride. But today in front of all of you, I am telling you I am not going to accept it, because it's high time they think about it and they try to review it. This amount was fixed about 25 years, or I mean maybe I don't know how many years back, 30 years back. And the government still doesn't have the time to review all these benefits given to the martyrs and their families. This is just one peek into the life of the martyrs family. What is the level of honor and pride we have to face from the society?
And I just want to make this point today. When we began the news hour, to all our viewers, we began with a story of how a minister decides to give 20,000 rupees as bakshish to any of his chosen people, his private assistants, his gardeners, his cashier, and how these Air India directors give themselves free plane rides for their family for the rest of their life. And this is how we treat our martyrs' families. We just need to know that. I'd now like to please invite Padma Sangli, wife of another martyr, late Major Sangli, martyred in Operation Rakshak in 2001 in Jammu and Kashmir. Ms. Sangli, can you please tell us the difficulties that you went through, so that our viewers get a sense of what martyrs' wives go through?
Well, I was married to Major Sangli for about 10.5 years, and it was a marriage by choice. I was always wanting to marry a person in uniform, and I happened to meet up with Captain Sangli at that time. Now, Captain Sangli then chose to work in the field. He opted for field postings for most of his life, which meant that I was staying away from him for almost about 8 years of my married life, in a total span of 10.5 years. We had a son at that time, and when he was martyred in Operation Rakshak, my son was 7 years old. It was initially very, very difficult for me to accept being alone, having to cope with this loss, but what kept me going was this great sense of pride I felt that he gave up his life in the honor of this country, and he died in his uniform. The image that will always remain in mind is that of his body and his coffin being draped in the national flag. I was 38 too when I lost Major Sangli, and so was he. I was very naive, and I, in my simplicity, believed that everything would fall in place and we would get our dues. I applied for land that was meant to be given to war widows through the Department of Sainik Welfare, Bangalore, and they sent across a letter to the Revenue Department, and they asked me to follow up. Like I said, I was very, very naive. I thought I would just go and meet them and it would happen. Well, I've been meeting them for the last about 8 to 9 years, and nothing has moved. Personally, I believe I'm a fairly brave person and also fairly resilient. I kept going at it, and I can't tell you, Mr. Goswami, what kind of stories I've heard for not having to give land that was duly meant to us. My files were made, land was identified in the north of Bangalore, and each time in a place where they could have easily given it to me. But they chose to shoot down my file for reasons such as it was meant for the burial ground and it was earmarked for an educational institution and such stories. I met up with several people in the bureaucracy and also several MPs and several ministers. who I think meant well and also put in a word, but the babus in those offices just couldn't care. I have surmounted such apathy, I can't tell you, to even try and move the file. My file as of now is available in the office of the Chikballapur Tahsildar, and as I speak to you, Mr. Goswami, I hold a letter in my hand dated 5th of April 2014. This letter reached me about 15 days back. Like any other letter, I decided not to open it because I somehow knew that it would say that I'm not going to get the land that I had applied for. Nevertheless, just before I came on the show, I dared to open this letter, and no surprise, it clearly says that we are not going to be given this land, although the land is identified and the file is built. Now, in absolute Kannada language, it says that this is not earmarked for me or war widows, and therefore my application has been shot down. All I ask is, give us our due, treat us with respect, please allow us to live with dignity. That is the least this country, the state and the society can do for us. I don't want to hang my head in shame, and I'm forced to do that.
Ms. Sangli and
Mr. Goswami?
Mrs. Bhandarkar,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I think what you have conveyed should be enough for people to wake up. But unfortunately, if I may just share my own experiences here with government officials sometimes, you know, everything is done for ceremony. And very often there is a feeling that if the camera is not on this particular person, you know, and if there is a martyr's wife, she is an individual, it's her individual case. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching Newshour tonight, remember this, that it is not that Shakuntala Bhandarkar and Padma Sangli have been denied what is their due. My problem, General Malik, and I'd like to come to you first, is that Padma Sangli and Shakuntala Bhandarkar, and before that Subhashini Vasant, and I don't know how many others, they are being repeatedly insulted. They are being humiliated. They are being made to feel very, very small, General Malik. Very small. And they say that maybe the politicians and MPs, they went to mean well, but I'll tell you what the problem is. I don't think anybody feels that their pain is also to be shared by them. You know, it's almost as if I'll do my little bit and then can you please move on and fight your case alone.
Yeah, and I would also
Yes.
like to tell our viewers that we are all empowered women and we are
Yes.
all professionals in our own area.
Yes.
It is just that whatever we are doing is we are fighting for our kids. You know, they have lost their fathers and they are missing their fathers, and there is a vacuum in their life.
Ma'am, you don't need
and
to
if the government has
you don't need to even
promised
say
us
that.
something,
We owe it to our martyrs' families. There's no reason or explanation which needs to be made. But General Malik, why is the situation being led to be like this? I mean, why is this happening? As we uncover this story, it appears that there are thousands of such cases all over the country.
That is right. Firstly, Arnab, let me compliment you and your channel and thank you all for taking up this much needed cause and try and awakening the whole lot of people in India. My last book, which I wrote a few months ago, which has been published a few months ago, carries a dedication to the Indian Army soldier, remembered in war, forgotten in peace. So the stories that you have heard are absolutely right. I have personally experienced the kind of indifference, apathy from the bureaucrats, from the officials, from the politicians. They make tall promises, particularly when the elections are due, and then they forget about them, as the ladies have just now mentioned. And it is a sad story that they are humiliated, they are made to feel small, as they themselves have described. I believe that none of our politicians, none of our senior officers from the civil services who deal with all these matters, none of them have any connection with the armed forces these days. Nobody's got his kith and kin in the armed forces. If they had their own relations working in the army, serving in the armed forces, they would probably realize all these things. And even in our society, they only remember the soldier during a crisis, and as soon as the crisis is over, they forget about the soldiers. Let me give you my own example. A few months ago, I wrote a personal letter delivered by hand to a deputy chief minister about an anomaly which I had brought to my notice, and one of the martyrs' family was suffering. Do you know, the gentleman, he did not even bother to acknowledge that letter.
Yeah.
I felt so bad and so small.
Yeah.
That here is an ex-army chief taking up the case for somebody, a martyr's family, a decorated officer,
Yeah.
and trying to show him that these are the anomalies, why don't you correct them? And the letter is not even acknowledged. So you are right that there are hundreds and hundreds of these stories, and people don't feel about them because they don't have any relations, any kith and kin in the armed forces, and they only remember us during the elections or when there is a crisis, and then they forget about these things. And I'm so glad that you are taking up these.
No, we are going to take it up, and I'm assuring you, General Malik, that we are going to be an irritant in the system as far as this whole subject is concerned. And I am also assuring Shakuntala Bhandarkar and Padma Sangli what I also assured Subhashini yesterday. I said we will take up hundreds of such cases. We will pick it up through the entire, because it's not a system of reward, and I'm going to come back to this. I have to take a small break. Just consider this. You are not rewarding the martyr's family if you are giving them their due. It's not a private reward. It is a promise made to a person when he wears the uniform. You have today Colonel Ajit Bhandarkar's wife Shakuntala, who says, my husband died in his boots. I am so proud of him. Her son today is in the army. I think this sentiment must be shared, and I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to take a short break, and I'm going to ask once again, when I come back, Padma Sangli, on why she felt she was almost giving up with against the system, and whether she and Shakuntala Bhandarkar will now be willing to speak on behalf of other martyrs' wives as well. Maruf, General Shankar Prasad, sorry for coming to you late. I'll be with you on the other side. General Shankar Prasad, one interesting case, Havildar Rajesh Kumar, 11 Rajputana rifles. He was on the Ghatak team. He killed 3 of the 8 terrorists, was posthumously awarded Shaurya Chakra in that operation. Politicians had promised that they would build a road and put his nameplate to remember the supreme sacrifice of the soldiers. After 6 years, not a single brick was laid. When the administration said, no, we are not even going to give you the money for the construction of a statue, the family came together and built it. This is just an example of apathy. But how is it that senior serving army officers have not picked up the issue? You know, if the several chiefs of staff or deputy chiefs of staff were to make it an issue with the defense ministers, would it have made a difference?
Arnab, first of all, let me thank you for bringing this subject up at the appropriate time when Mr. Narendra Modi's government has just taken charge. So far, what we have learned from this debate is that it is the state governments which are not honouring what they're supposed to do for the soldiers, while it may be correct to some extent. But let me please tell you one thing very categorically, that a soldier, sailor and an airman is the asset of the central government. His employer is the central government, and therefore a soldier, sailor and an airman is the asset of the central government. And if there is any liability on him because of whatever he may be doing or what not doing, is that also of the central government. Let not everybody pass it on to the state governments of Karnataka or Rajasthan or any other state government. In this context, I want to bring it to your notice that the Ministry of Defence has created something called the Ex-Servicemen Department. When some years ago this department was created, it was understood and believed that it will be headed by a 3-star rank of the armed forces, and the welfare of the armed forces personnel serving retired and martyred will be looked after by this department. Unfortunately, This department is headed today by an officer of the rank of a secretary to the Government of India from the Indian Administrative Service, who has no respect, no love lost for the armed forces. Not only this, any act or order passed by the Armed Forces Tribunal in favor of individuals is contested by this department of the Ministry of Defence. While today's Raksha Mantri has passed instructions to say that the government of Karnataka will look after this issue, I am afraid we need to look at it at the central level as well. The Department of Ex-Servicemen needs to look into this matter seriously, and while we serve the central government, it is the central government's responsibility to also look after our martyrs, our pensioners, our disabled soldiers, and our widows, and our war widows, and our decorated soldiers. Please, for God's sake, let us get these facts right, that you cannot wash your hands away by saying it's the responsibility of someone else.
I take your point.
It is the responsibility of the Ministry of Defence to whom we serve to save the nation.
But I take your point.
Please see that the Ministry of Defence, Department of Ex-Servicemen works to its full capacity.
I agree.
And let 3-star ranks handle it and head this department.
I agree, but
Only
these are not. These are not
to get the dues that we need to get.
Jal Shankar Prasad, you know, Satbir Singh and Maruf, first Maruf and then Satbir ji. I have just simple question. These are not complicated things to do, right? So, our defense, our politicians, for example, spend a lot of time, Maruf, negotiating on the big defense deals. Then there are controversies. But as far as the people who run the machines, who fight the machines and who give up their lives fighting for the army, their families are not taken care of. Maruf, this is not a new issue we picked up at times now. You have yourself expressed your frustration over it so many times on previous occasions. So those in the know have known. The point is that martyrs' families have been taken for granted because it is almost like they are an expendable force. They have done what they could for the country, and now the country so therefore moves on. So I want to ask you, Maruf, where is the indifference coming from to you and Satbir ji after you, who have experienced the indifference? Tell me, where is the indifference coming from? How can you dare to do something like this and get away with it? I mean, the letter which Padma Sangli picked up today, which she says, I did not have my heart to open, but it gave me a predictable answer. It's not a letter, it is a statement of acute arrogance. Maruf, where is this arrogance coming from?
Arnab, it's a very good question, and that was what I was wanting to talk about. The indifference that comes in our system is, I'm sorry to say, part of a Nehruvian legacy. It was Pandit Nehru's effort after independence to put the armed forces outside the public domain and outside public imagination, and everything that was connected with the armed forces therefore was given short shrift. This is a legacy that has translated down successive governments, and it has now become almost a norm. We had a defense minister until recently who was indifferent not just to this but many other requirements of the armed forces, from professional requirements right down to humane requirements. Let me remind you that at the Siachen Glacier, which is one of the fiercest battlefields in the world, there is a war memorial which says, "Here great courage and fortitude is the norm." And you step away from the memorial and it's written, "How can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods?" It is for that purpose that every soldier goes out into battle, with the hope and the promise that he is given, that you do the supreme sacrifice, your kith and kin will be taken care of. Unfortunately, it has now become part of our DNA to reject the sacrifice of our martyrs, and we will soon reach a stage where we will not have youth willing to go out and die for this country and to protect its territorial sovereignty. It doesn't matter if you're from Karnataka or Kerala. That man died defending Kashmir. That man died defending some other part of India where he has no roots, but that is his India. He defends the idea of India. And if you are not going to support him in that exercise, this nation must hang his head in shame. I feel very, very sorry because I know of a lot of cases where people and ladies of such distinction who are on your channel today have gone with quiet dignity from pillar to post and have been ignored, and their files have been often thrown on their faces. Is this what this country is all about? You cannot become a great power, Arnab, if your people are not willing to respect your men in uniform, because they will hold up your flag when everything else is down. And our political elite, I have a suggestion, Arnab, that Mr. Jaitley is the Minister of Defense, Minister of Finance, and also of Corporate Affairs. There is a clause in corporate social responsibility which says that veterans' welfare can be added to that. Why can't we add martyrs' welfare under CSR for companies that are looking to do good if they wish to, and they can be given a window to
Absolutely.
look after these families, to support them, to give them more avenues and opportunities. I congratulate you and congratulate the channel, but more importantly, I salute these brave women who have stood up with fortitude against the entire indifference that our society has heaped on them. It is a shame, and we must carry out this campaign till we manage to achieve something which is tangible in nature for these brave women.
Otherwise all the
very
politicians,
right,
they
Madam.
remember
Very
the
nice.
defense forces just on the eve of the election, elections. And they use it symbolically. They use officers, ex-officers symbolically before an election. I'm going to end by going back to Shakuntala Bhandarkar and Padma Sangli, but I want to go to General Sadbir Singh once again. Sir, in your experience, I'm coming to General Malik also once again. In your experience, what has been the stumbling block? Because as Shakuntala ji and Padma Sangli said, they are empowered professional women who can also, they may have other ways of at least sustaining their families. Now, there are a lot of others who may lack basic means. There may be family members who may not be as empowered. There may be people who may not even have a proper education, may not be able to find a voice. So the situation is probably worse for many other families. General Sadbir.
Arnab, I can say this, जिस देश के सैनिक सड़कों पर देश का दुर्भाग्य है. This is the time when we all got to get together. How can you see a soldier protesting to get their rights? Today, your channel, I salute these two Veer Naris and thousands of the more Veer Naris who have given life of their husbands for the sake of this nation. Now you asked, where did I find things going wrong? It is the execution of the system. There is a total slumber in getting the dues processed in the manner they ought to be. If you see, General Malik has been the Chief of Army Staff during the Kargil War. 543 of our brave soldiers, officers and JCOs, they died. They sacrificed their life, and 1,363 were maimed and disabled and had to be disabled and pushed out. Now, where is there was a committee ordered, which was Subramaniam Committee. It had recommended some very solid methods to set things right. Where are those, executions of the Subramaniam Committee report? None has been executed. The first and foremost was integration of the Defense Ministry. Just now, Maroof said nothing has happened.
Why is
And
this
therefore,
so? General Malik,
what you find in the states, what you find in the center,
no, I want to ask
there is
General
no
Malik because
method in this madness also today.
see, I want to in this case
That the Defense Ministry.
General Sadbir, what I want in this case right now is that here's an opportunity. I feel Mr. Arun Jaitley is there. There's a new government. If they want, they can actually. It need not be a situation. This channel does this story. In this case, we'll give you justice. In this case, you highlight this story. In this case, we'll forward your request to the state government. It has to be institutional, General Malik. It has to be an assurance.
Now, I just want to say one thing.
A channel can't pick up every single case, and then what about the hundreds of cases which news channels don't pick up? My greater concern is about that, General Malik.
No, Arnab, I want to say.
No, just to General Malik once.
Arnab, I want to say one thing before General Malik comes in. I say 330 districts don't have the soldiers board secretaries.
I get it. I think I understand the point.
The same.
No, I understand your point. I understand your point. I'm going back to General Malik. General Malik.
Therefore,
General Malik wanted to say something.
Okay.
Just hear him.
Yeah, you know, the basic reason for this apathy and indifference, you asked that, is because there is no stake. These people have no stake in matters of the country. Secondly, the attitudinal problem. Now, unless we correct these two issues, create a stake and also make sure that their attitude, this can only be done by a hard political taskmaster. It cannot be done, it cannot be left to the bureaucracy.
I think that's true.
And therefore, I would expect a strong defense minister, like Shankar Prasad has mentioned about the Directorate of Ex-Servicemen Welfare, etc., etc., and he is quite right, whatever examples he has given, how they are working against the ex-servicemen and not looking after their interests. So you require today a very strong man in the Ministry of Defense to make sure that all people are accountable and they have a stake in it.
I just want to ask Mrs. Bhandarkar and Mrs. Sangli at the end, to both of you brave Veer Naris, my only question is, I was very concerned when in our news report, I think it was Mrs. Sangli, you said, I feel like giving up and I've almost given up hope. Now,
well, Mr. Goswami, I have given up. I have already given up. After 12 years of losing a show,
no, ma'am, you should not give up.
I don't care anymore.
We are there with you.
No, sorry, I'll tell you why. I'm absolutely... No, please listen to me. I'm very, very successful in my own right. I'm an entrepreneur in the city of Bangalore. I run a business and I'm doing fairly well. I've reached a stage in my life where I've decided that I'm not going to beg and plead anymore. I haven't got my dues, so why should I come to them? Why should I go to them? The reason I agreed to come on this show is just to speak on behalf of several other people while also highlighting my cause. That was just the reason.
I appreciate
the system doesn't care, Mr. Goswami, and there is absolutely no accountability. And it is intrinsic. Like somebody said, there is nothing to lose. They just don't care. And we've reached a stage where my suggestion is, take out all these things. We don't need your grants. We don't need your money. If you're really meaning well, you revamp the structure, bring things into effect, make sure it reaches the right people. Otherwise, don't give us anything. Just allow us to live with dignity.
Yes, Ms. Sangli, I appreciate where you're coming from. Ms. Bhandarkar, you wanted to say something. No, Mrs. Bhandarkar.
Also, yes, I must tell you there is no
long story short.
Yeah.
Yeah. To just cut the long story short, I have a few suggestions for the people who really want to help us. I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist to the core, and we are ready to give suggestions. We are ready to give our experiences, share our experiences, give them in what way they can help. I mean, to relate to the the cause of the ladies and to the welfare of the women and their families. So then what I thought was, maybe we can have a special cell in the CMO and in the PMO. This is to cut it to make it very brief, a special cell for martyrs and whatever the war casualties, and for any other emergencies. We should have a special cell or a window wherein in the CMO's office at the state level and the central level, we should have in the PMO's office, where we just need to give the appeal, and the person who is there, who's heading that cell, would because our system is so very lengthy and so very filled with paperwork that today if the chief minister of Karnataka has said yes, the revenue minister is going to look into the affairs of the martyrs' families and the issues related to them. Till date, the Home Ministry was looking at it. Now you can imagine how many days it will take for the files to move from the Home Ministry to the Revenue Ministry. Yes. Yeah. So keeping in mind all these procedural delays, if one window is created at both the levels, at least I feel to some extent the time and the energy would be saved, and to some extent the benefits would reach the people, families
on time. You know, there is no point in giving it after the person
Yes.
is, you know, at the fag end of his career or is, you know,
Yes,
literally
ma'am, I
at the
will-
fag end of his life. She is fighting for her dues.
I have to close for want of time because we've exceeded the time on Newshour. But I just want to make one small promise before I wrap up today. We do intend, Ms. Mandarkar and Mrs. Sangli, that we will pick this up. We will highlight as many cases as possible because I am of the belief that in our country, unless you really highlight the magnitude of the problem, sometimes people don't wake up. This is my conviction. So we are going to make sure that our reporters cover the ground and show to the people who matter how this is a nationwide problem. It's an endemic problem and it's been happening for a very long time. And after that, Mrs. Sangli, where I appreciate where you're coming from, you know, there are other people who need that help, assistance and a helping hand.
A voice, yes.
And on those,
Yes.
on behalf
Yes, we
of all
need a
those
voice.
people, we'll do our bit. And I think, you know, educated, empowered women like you can also step forward, and I will take your assistance and help as we take this campaign forward. With a big thank you to everyone.
I'll do anything that's possible.
Yes.
And thank
And-
you, Times Now.
Thank-
I mean, you've taken up a big cause. Thank you so much.
We have taken it up, and I'll assure you, ma'am, that we've taken it up with great seriousness. Thank you very much for joining me on the Newshour tonight.